Hi, Acadiana. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. This is your Monday winter weather update. Hard to believe that we are now on the eve of what could be a historic winter storm here in South Louisiana. Some of the forecast models have been putting down several inches of rain, and they haven't waffled a whole lot back or forth over the last several days. So it does appear that the forecast is pretty much almost solid, and it does appear that just about all of Acadiana will see some kind of accumulating winter type of precip here over the next couple of days. And it is kind of hard to believe because of how beautiful it is out here today, as temperatures are quite cold, but the sky is mostly sunny. But there are clouds that are starting to roll in right along the Gulf Coast over extreme southwestern Louisiana. And those clouds will continue to push off toward the northeast, and we should see gray skies as we head through the afternoon. Roadways are all open. There's no precip out there. Most of our temperatures will climb above the freezing point today, but then after midnight tonight, especially over our far western sections, things will start to get going, and I am expecting temperatures to drop below the freezing point before most of the precipitation comes in. Therefore, anything that does fall will likely stick. Well, we have a winter storm warning that will be in effect. It will go into effect tonight at midnight and will stay in effect until midnight tomorrow night, and it covers the entire Acadiana area. So we are expecting significant snowfall accumulations. There could be some decent wind gusts out there, and because these snowflakes are going to be quite large and we could see some heavy bursts of snow, most likely we're going to see some lower visibilities. But of course, our roadways, our bridges, our overpasses are generally going to be closed, especially those bridges and overpasses. And because of the lack of snow removal equipment that we have here in South Louisiana, we're literally going to be dependent on the sun and the warmer temperatures to be able to melt that snow and ice off of those bridges. So do be prepared for a multiple day travel issue. I would not recommend any traveling after midnight tonight. And then probably you're going to have to stay put until sometime at the very earliest Thursday morning, because we're not expecting a whole lot of warming coming up on Wednesday, nor until we get into the afternoon hours on Thursday. So here are the latest forecast snow accumulations from the National Weather Service over in Lake Charles. So this is kind of what we're looking at as our official forecast, and it really hasn't changed a whole lot, maybe shifting some of the heavier amounts of snow a little bit farther to the south, but it does appear that we're going to be concentrating on the heavier amounts there from our Highway 190 parishes, Beauregard, Allen, Evangeline, and St. Landry, and then our I-10 parishes, Calcasieu, Jeff Davis, Acadia, Lafayette, and St. Martin, are all kind of in that heavier swath of snow, but that heavier swath of snow is extended a little farther to the south. So if you live along the LA 14 corridor, you might be in that 4 or 5 inch range, and we're even seeing the possibility of accumulating snows of the 2 to 3 inch range all the way down to the Gulf Coast of Cameron, Vermilion, and even over into St. Mary Parish. So this will be unprecedented. Remember, the biggest snowfall happened 130 years ago, back in 1895. Lake Charles picked up 22 inches of snow. Lafayette had 14. New Iberia had 13.5. And the state record was also set at that time, where in Rayne, Louisiana, we picked up 24 inches of snow. At this point, I don't see us approaching those totals, but I think most areas are going to fall on number 2 when it comes to the heaviest snows across Acadiana when we're looking at these numbers that we're seeing here. And I will say it has been a very, very, very long time. There aren't too many people that were around the last time we saw 4 or 5 inches of snow area-wide across the Acadiana area. So the setup is already started. What we've got is you've got that cold dome of high pressure that's basically diving down here out of Canada, and that's going to continue to surge southward. So the cold air is already in place, and there's a lot of reinforcement coming all the way down from the North Pole. So that is going to continue to stay in place, at least this pattern here, for the next couple of days, and that's going to keep things frigid right here along the Gulf Coast, but it's also going to keep things frigid pretty much anywhere east of the Rockies. We're talking about wind chills along the Canadian border today that are down in the 30, 40, and even 50-degree below zero range. Now our forecast highs today, because we are getting a little sunshine this morning, but I think most of us are going to reach the low 40s with upper 30s over the northern sections. But then tonight, as things get started with the wintry precip, it does appear that virtually all areas on land will be below freezing, even down toward the Gulf Coast. So that would support more of a snow event here in Louisiana, although there could be some mix of sleet getting down right along the coast. Sometimes the Gulf would have a little bit of an influence, and you can have some weird stuff happen there right along the Gulf Coast. So here's our upper level pattern. We talk about that polar vortex that's been dislodged there over the northeastern part of Canada, and that extends down here to the Great Lakes over parts of the upper Midwest. But the trough actually goes all the way down here to the south, and with a little bit of energy coming out of Mexico, that's going to move off to the east and help to generate that low pressure area at the surface along the Gulf Coast, and then push that off toward the east-northeast. And with the cold air in place, that's what should set up the snow. So let's go with a high-resolution rapid refresh. And this gives you data every hour, which is very nice. It also updates every hour. But I am using the one that ran at 12Z because the HRRR goes out 48 hours with the 0Z, 6Z, 12Z, and 18Z. So 4 times a day it goes out 48 hours, but the rest of the time it only goes out 18. So I'm pulling out the 48-hour one here, and you can see that the HRRR is basically calling for all snow, and then everything kind of moving off toward the east. Now remember, it looks a little bit slow here because each one of these frames represents 1 hour, so we're not missing a whole lot of data in between. As we get into those snowfall totals, the HRRR, kind of like the NAM, has shifted the heaviest amounts a little bit farther toward the south, but we are still forecasting about a 6-inch snow along the I-10 corridor, and then points going down toward the Gulf Coast. Maybe a little bit less according to the HRRR over central parts of Louisiana, and that might be an indication of some considerably colder air really settling in, but that would dry things out. But on the flip side, it would also make your snow a little bit more fluffy. So that might kind of balance out what we're talking about when it comes to the amounts of snow. So even though it seems like there's a little bit less there up toward Alexandria, do be prepared for at least 2 to 3, if not more. And then as we look at the North American model, and again, this one also gives us data every hour, so there's not much data gap in between. And you can see there are bursts of heavy snow according to the NAM, and it looks like maybe it's still a bit of a wintry mix there right along the coast. But this is still showing a snow event once again, and the snowfall totals are right there in that central part of Acadiana, very close to what the National Weather Service's official forecast is, but it is still putting down some 7, 8, and even 9-inch snowfalls over the I-10 corridor. And I can't rule out the possibility of seeing more than 6 or 7 inches of snow in some isolated areas. If you get those bursts of snow, kind of like you get bursts of heavy rain when you have a precipitation event, if you get that, there are some areas that could see some heavier amounts. So don't rule out the fact that maybe a couple of you might be able to stick that ruler into the snow and measure between 7, 8, or even 9 inches of snow. Now the GFS is a lower resolution. There's a lot of gaps in here because each frame here is only 6 hours, but you can see that it is talking about all snow, and it has been pretty much holding on to this 6 to 8 inch area-wide snowfall with maybe some isolated higher amounts. You might get a little bit of packing due to the amount of snow being dropped from the sky, but also because of the water content. If you get that heavy wet snow, it's going to pack it down a little bit more, but if it comes out a little bit more fluffy, you may get an extra inch out of that, even with less moisture content. And then finally, we're going to look at the Euro, and Euro is really the one that's kind of the most trusted when it comes to snowfall forecast. And I could say that the Euro for the last week is really the only one that hasn't done any major flip-flops compared to the other models, but it is still calling for all snow. It's also calling for some heavier bursts of snow here and there. And the forecast amounts of the Euro are still going anywhere between 4 and 6, which is about where it's been holding now for a number of days. But it is also kind of got a couple of hot spots there of maybe 7 or 8. So all 4 of the models that we looked at here are calling for snow, and they're calling for a significant amount of snow as well. Real quick, I want to show you the soundings, and if you're not familiar with this, this is kind of a cross section of the atmosphere where we want to try to find out if we're going to get any mixed bag precipitation in here. This is the HRRR, and you can see down here at the surface that red temperature of 25, and the blue is actually 22. That's your temperature and your dew point. And remember, the closer those lines are together, the higher your humidity is. So what this map is telling me is that the lower parts of the atmosphere is not just saturated, but it's also all below freezing. There's your 0 Celsius, which is the freezing point, and you can see there's the line that goes up. So everything is to the left of that line. So the entire column of air, according to the HRRR, will be below freezing. Same goes for the North American model, maybe a little bit of warming up there, but it doesn't go above freezing. So again, we're talking about all snow and a very saturated atmosphere at the bottom. So that would continue to keep some moderate to heavy snow going. Same thing on the GFS. Everything is to the left of that 0 degree mark all the way down to the surface. A lot of saturation, pretty much all the way down to the ground too, so that would indicate all snow. And finally, the Euro model, that cross-section again, temperatures staying below the 32 degree mark or below freezing, 0 Celsius, but a very saturated column of air, even going well up into the atmosphere, and that could be an indication of some of those heavier pockets of snow that could affect the Acadiana area starting tonight and going through the end of the day tomorrow. So again, you probably have already taken care of most of this. Plants, if they were still uncovered or outside last night, they're gone. Temperatures dropped into the low to mid 20s area wide, and this is possibly going to be a pipe bursting type of situation all the way down south of the I-10 corridor, especially tomorrow night, because those temperatures are expected to drop into the lower teens here in Lafayette, probably upper teens down toward the coast, and maybe even getting into the lower teens, maybe down to 10 up towards Cenla. Again, a lot of this is going to depend on how much snow we have on the ground, because the snow would actually make it even colder, because it would be insulating the ground, so the ground heat would be staying below that snow cover and wouldn't be able to be released into the air. So things can get very, very cold when you have snow cover out there. So pipes, they are definitely going to be an issue. You need to have those protected and get that all taken care of if you haven't yet by the end of the day today. Pets and people. Of course, you want to stay inside as much as possible. I know that's going to be hard to do, especially since most of us in Acadiana have not seen this kind of snow event that could be coming in. So I know y'all are going to be playing outside, but traveling is going to come to a screeching halt, and you may not be able to do any traveling until sometime going into Thursday, because I'm not really expecting the temperature to get much above freezing on Wednesday, even with the sun coming out. And since we deal with a lot of bridges and overpasses and we have no snow removal equipment here in South Louisiana, we're really going to be dependent on the sun and the warmer temperatures. And unfortunately, I-10 is an east-west route, so the sun doesn't get to cover it quite as well as it will on a north-south type of roadway. So I would expect the I-10 Basin Bridge to be closed for an extended period of time. And of course, check in on your neighbors. Make sure the elderly that live alone are watched over, and do prepare for some power outages. Even though we're expecting mostly snow, if it gets heavy enough, it can pull down some tree branches and we could see some sporadic power outages. But right now, power would not be affected as much with snow as it would with ice, and we're not expecting as much ice, which is really, really good news. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm actually kind of excited about this winter weather event. For one, it's something that's completely different. It's been a lot of fun working with the different computer models and playing with a puzzle that is something that we don't normally get to do in the meteorology world here along the Gulf Coast. I know there are a lot of you that are excited and will have your noses pressed against the window. I doubt very many people are going to get a good night's sleep tonight, because people are going to keep getting up and looking out the window, waiting for that first snowflake. But do, use the safety precautions, especially after the snow ends. It is going to be downright frigid tomorrow night and going into Wednesday. So you do need to watch out and just make sure you take care of yourself and your friends and your pets and make sure everybody stays warm. If you like these videos, please give it a like for me and subscribe to my channel. That way you get the updates throughout the day tomorrow, and turn on those notifications. That way you get that stuff right away when things come down on Tuesday. It is going to be quite a busy day. I will be doing social media posts through the afternoon with any updated weather models, especially if there's any big changes. But at this point, I don't anticipate a whole lot of changes in the forecast. We're in the wait mode right now to see if those models are correct and that we will see a winter wonderland here in Acadiana as we go into Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Stay safe. I will see you tomorrow morning on Acadiana Weather Today around 7, and we'll do another winter weather update in the middle of the event on Tuesday. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you later.